This week on Eco Show, we're going to be talking about me. We're also going to be talking about me. And later on the show, we're going to be talking about me. I didn't prepare anything for this show, so I'm just going to talk about the research that I'm doing in my PhD and and we'll kind of see where we go with it. So that's going to be the show for this week. Welcome to Eco Show. All right, welcome to Eco Show. This is a show about ecology, the environment, and things in that space. Usually I talk about a thing of the week and then talk about some recent research in ecology and then wrap up the show talking about recent news in ecology. But I didn't prepare anything this week, so I'm just going to be talking about me a little bit. Right now, I'm up in Taranaki. We've got Paritutu behind me in the distance. We're on the cliffs on the coast. It's a nice little spot, very worth a visit. And we have a big, there's a big like pylon thing right next to Paritutu, which is kind of a shame. It kind of ruins it a little bit, but still is a very cool spot. So for the thing of the week, I'm the thing of this week. And so I started getting interested in ecology. I think I wasn't really thinking about ecology too much when I was a kid that much. We would go do camping trips and things like that. So the outdoors definitely felt like a comfortable place. But I was more interested in kind of social justice-y stuff as a kid, was things I was interested in. And by the time I was in high school, I was interested in doing medicine related stuff. And while I was in high school, I got to do a internship at a hospital, and I got to see surgeries and things like that. But it wasn't. It was cool. It was cool to see the surgeries and cool to see that I could be in the room with somebody getting their hips on open and be relaxed about that happening. But it didn't seem like a day job that would feel particularly fulfilling. So that kind of started working into my head after I had visited a hospital. So then I sort of started pivoting that medical interest into something that was still outdoorsy. And so I wrote, I think one of my college essays was about wanting to be a bush doctor, where you'd like fly into remote places and do medical related stuff. And I still think that would be kind of a cool thing to be able to be doing, but for whatever reason, medical stuff wasn't really. I think it wasn't super sticking in my head as something that I really wanted to do. And then I think it was. I remember the time, but it was in that undergrad time, and a sort of. I think it was some environmental science class that I was taking, and it seemed interesting to be learning about the environment, and then obviously climate change related issues seemed like a cool thing to check out and then to get into. So then I started doing more ecology, ecosystem stuff related things as an undergrad, and sort of got to experience doing that and started to get a feeler out for what kind of things I enjoyed about that, and then ended up going down the ecology road. So that was kind of the thing that I ended up sticking with and floated around a little bit. Started after my undergrad, I did some ecology technician jobs, and and I liked doing that, but then I sort of had a period of wanting to try doing artistic related things, so trying to make music and seeing how that went. And I liked doing that, but it didn't feel like it was going to be the thing that would feel super fulfilling. So then I got a job editing a research journal, or doing like a, and if it sounds like a nice thing, downgrade it in your mind, because it was kind of like the factory farm version of doing an editing job. And so you're supposed to edit all of these articles that were coming into this journal, and so it was, they were publishing a lot and things like that. And there's little spurts of rain in the air. I hope it doesn't get bigger, because we will get these materials will get fried out here. Anyhow, so so I was doing that job, and I was reading a lot of science articles, having to edit them, and I really liked reading the science articles, and that sort of was a little bit of a light bulb in my head of like, okay, I think I kind of need to be doing researchy stuff as a job, because I like doing the like reading the research, so it'd be cool to get back into it. So I found a master's that was in restoration ecology. I did that master's, and then rolled over after that, just right on into a PhD. So that is the thing of the week. And the thing of the week was me and how I got interested in ecology related things. So there you go on that. And for our research this week, we'll talk about the research that I did in my master's. And that research was on biodiversity corridors. So I was modeling how different animals move across the landscape, and how easy or how hard it is for them to move across the landscape. So the model that I was using, what you do is you pretty much, you take the landscape that you're working with, and for every little bit of the landscape has a land cover type that's assigned to it. So that could be grassland, it could be city, it could be a whole different sort of thing. So you can classify a whole landscape. And a lot of countries have this produced for their country. They have the whole landscape roughly classified into what sort of land use is being done on land. And so for each land use type, you can then assign a resistance value, which is just means how hard is it for a particular animal to cross that type of land cover. So this research was looking at 4 different animals, and for all of the different land cover types, I assigned a resistance value, so how hard it is for a thing to cross it, from 0 to 100, 100 being the like 100% hard to cross. So like, a squirrel trying to cross the Amazon River or something like that. That would be like 100. And you kind of have to make it up a little bit for different things. You're kind of doing guesstimation, and you're talking with people who are experts to get an idea of how hard or easy it would be for them to move across a particular landscape feature. And then you get an idea across the whole landscape of which ways are easiest and which ways are hardest for animals to move across the landscape. And this can help you to focus your efforts for restoration. So if you've got a clear pathway that's going to be the best for a Great Dane to move across your landscape, then you can focus your efforts along that pathway instead of just doing hodgepodge restoration. Instead of putting Scooby snacks randomly across the landscape, this can help you to define or design with better accuracy where to put your Scooby snacks to benefit the Great Dane moving across your landscape. And that analogy really threw me off track. Okay, so doing that I did that for a few different animals, including an invasive predator. So here in New Zealand, where I'm at, there are a lot of different animals that are native animals, which are there are a lot of different native animals, and they're particularly under threat from invasive mammals like rats and weasels and stoats and things like that, because there weren't really any predatorial mammals that were here before they're introduced by Europeans. So when those animals were introduced here, they really knocked down all of the local insects and birds because they were just ripe for the picking for these European mammals to come in and snap them up. And then, so this was looking at the pathways across the landscape for native animals and for a invasive predator, because you can then see how these overlap, and then that can sort of help you if you're trying to control these predators on the landscape scale. This can help you to decide, okay, where are we going to put in traps? Where are we going to put in poisons to make sure that we kill these invasive predators and benefit birds? So that was the first part of the research, which is cool, just looking at what the rough corridors at the present day could be according to this model for these different species. So that was all cool to do, and the outcome of that is that it can help you decide where to restore to benefit these pathways across or to bolster these pathways across the landscape for animals you do want, and it can help you decide where to put in more trapping for things that you don't want. Then the second part of this research was taking that and applying a change to that land cover. So I talked about how the landscape has a classification that's assigned by whatever country you're talking about. Well, you can change that if you want to. So you can alter that in whatever ways you want using software. So what I did was I did imaginary restoration of forest alongside every stream of a particular size. So if a stream was big enough, it would get forest along the side of it. So this is sort of looking at a sort of realistic restoration scenario and what the impacts of that would be on species corridors. The outcomes of that were that it looked like there ended up being more overlap, I believe, between a lot of the species, including the predators. So when you have a lot of restoration put in alongside streams, that then becomes a better kind of highway for travel, and it also becomes a better highway for travel for predators. So I believe that was sort of the main outcome, but I didn't look over it before writing this. So there can be plus sides and downsides to that. It definitely made the landscape easier for every species to cross, and it could also in some ways make it easier to trap your predators because you can have these pathways designed to benefit everybody, but you can make sure that the traps and the control measures you're putting in place are particularly suited to getting those predators knocked out. So I'm working now with my advisor to hopefully publish that, and that could be cool if we get that done. So that's the master's project I did, and now I'm about halfway through my PhD, but I will talk about that another time. And news. So that was the research section. Now for the news. I'm gonna try something different. We're gonna see what the news from the landscape that I'm sitting in is. So I don't know if I'll keep this in, but we'll see. We'll see what the area is saying. What's the news in this? This park is called Paritutu Centennial Park. We got Paritutu in the background right here. So we're interviewing Paritutu. This is the first Eco Show interview. News on the street with Paritutu. Well, there's a big sand dune at the bottom of Paritutu Rock. I'm not sure how that got there, but it's a very cool thing. It's like it's got to be 100 feet or over 100 feet high, over 50 meters high, and it's a sand dune that you can take to the bottom of the beach. So you can't really see from here, but we're fairly far up on a cliff right here. And if you're just listening, you can imagine I'm sitting in a bunch of invasive grass, and I have a big rock behind me. It's an overcast day, and this rock is in the distance. So it's almost, I don't know if you can call it a rock, but I was reading about the area where I'm at, Taranaki. There's a big mountain here, which is actually a volcano. It's a dormant volcano, which means that it is sleeping. It's having a little nap, but it could come back awake, and it very likely will. What this is behind me is actually was a volcano. I'm almost completely sure. And there's a few other rocks. No, you can't see them. There's a few other rocks out in the water that were also volcanoes. So Taranaki here is that volcano is a strata volcano, which is one of the two main types of volcanoes, which means that and this is sort of, when I was reading about volcanoes and I was looking at the number of types of volcanoes there are, it's kind of a little bit wishy-washy, like what are the different types of volcanoes. It was hard to get a firm answer, but according to the British Geological Society, who should know their stuff, but also, what kind of geology have you got in Britain that lets you to talk about anything? You know, they can talk about cliffs of Dover and mud. Would be about all I could say. Well, they got some mountains in the middle of the islands, but surely the British Geological Society shouldn't have a thing to say about volcanoes. There's not a volcano in Europe that I'm aware of. Anywho, there is a volcano here, and it has activity approximately every 90 years. So apparently there is, it's pretty overdue for some activity here. This isn't projected to be any sort of catastrophic thing, but there is expected to be some sort of activity which could lead to ash being released, so it would have local issues and some flight disruptions, but not really catastrophic. The issue would be particularly that you've got a lot of farms around the base of this volcano, so you can actually make it out from space because there's almost a perfect circle of forest that's been preserved around the base of this volcano. And right along the edge of all of that forest, you have a lot of farms. So the big impact from an eruption would be particularly disrupting those farms. But it is a cool big mountain. It's beautiful, and so it being a stratovolcano means that the lava that comes out is thick. So the two major types of volcano are really defined really by the type of lava that comes out of them. And stratovolcanoes tend to have thick lava, so they build up over time. So you have an eruption and things come out, and it just sort of builds up on top of itself over and over and over again. And they have this more of a sort of conical, kind of a steep sort of a shape. And then you have shield volcanoes, which have runny lava, which are a lot lower, are not as steep. So those are like what are active in Hawaii, that are sort of always bubbling over and things like that, but they have that sort of low profile. So yeah, the volcano here is likely to erupt sometime soon, but it won't be a super big eruption or anything like that. And you can usually get an idea of activity coming along when you have got some seismic activity going on. So thanks for that, Paritutu Rock. Is there anything else you'd like to mention about, we've talked about stratovolcanoes. What I'm curious about is these bluffs are very sandy. And I think I was saying that all around Taranaki is all very sedimentary rock. And so it's very, it erodes pretty easily, and it's very hilly through this area. So it's curious to me how I guess that's what a volcano is it's this lava of this hot rock bubbling up through the Earth's crust and the bedrock, up and going up to the sky. So what else have we got going on? I'm sitting in a bunch of very invasive grass, but that will be very munchable for cattle and sheep and things like that. And I was driving along this cliffside, and people are really grazing as much as they can out here. You've got cows just on the edge of the cliff here, so you gotta feed those puppies with whatever you can get in their bodies. I'll tell you that much. We've got harakeke here on the side, and behind me is some people call it flax, but I don't think it actually is a type of flax, but is used for weaving, and it's put in a lot of wetland plantings. And the bird called a tui is like perfectly shaped. You might be able to see I don't know if you can see here. No, can you see? You can see up here. So I'm pointing, if you're just listening, I'm pointing to some of the flowers on the harakeke, and you can't really make it out, but a tui bird will stick its head in there to get nectar and things, and it will have this great orange color from the pollen in the harakeke after it's dipped its head in there doing its thing. And yeah, when you see them perch on there and get some of the pollen out. It looks like they're just perfectly built to go in there and get pollen out. We've got some trees around. I'm not too sure what sort of trees these are, but we've got some sort of a pine over there on the side that's an invasive one. So that is what we've got. Let's see. Is there anything else in your view? Not in particular. Let's see. Any other news this week? Not that's coming to mind. I think it's been kind of a calm news week, but there's always, whenever I'm looking for, that's just the thing, is for the good news and things like that, there's not a lot that you can just riff on. If I was riffing on, Britney Spears, I know about Britney Spears. I don't have any interest in it, but that's in the news. But I don't know of any good news in particular. So you really kind of gotta dig for it. It's kind of my lesson today. There isn't really enough that naturally comes up over the course of the week that you can just free ball it. So I don't know if free ball it is the right term to be using there, but anyways, I think that's about all we got for this week at the moment. I'll just do a little ramble here. See if I get any more. See if any more of the plants or things have anything else to say around. It is a beautiful area. The ocean looks fantastic. The sun is just glowing over the water. We've got seagulls fluttering by and a beautiful landscape. It looks like it would be decent surfing down there. There's supposed to be a lot of good surfing around Taranaki and this space. So it would be cool to check that out at some point. I didn't bring a surfboard though, so that is tragic. The grass is luscious though. This is actually not very fun to sit in, but I was at another place while I've been up here, and it had just the softest grass. Like I took my shirt off and was laying in it, and it wasn't prickly at all or anything like that, So not a huge fan of grass, but there is some grass that is super luxurious. There's a marine protected reserve around here, which is a cool thing, which would be probably good to roll out in more places. I know we've just had this big marine reserve or marine agreement agreed to by multiple nations that happened a couple months ago, but I haven't heard any updates on what is actually happening or coming from that. But that will be cool to see. I think we'll just about call it a day there. So I hope you're having a great week. I hope this has been enjoyable, and we'll catch you all next time. Bye-bye.